Hello and welcome live to the Lost Rewatch. I'm joined by Matt, Karen, and Morgan. How's it going, guys?
It's going.
Going great.
Now, Morgan, this is your first time on this rewatch, and I usually ask people, "How did you get into Lost?" And we lost Matt.
So we lost Matt. He didn't. That was enough for him. That's all he. All he needed to do was take one look at who the guest was, and he was like, "I'm out."
He went to go get his gin. He went to get his gin, I guess. But anyway,
can he come back? Okay, great.
Yeah, he can come back.
Yeah. I got into Lost in junior high. You know, I watched it. Matt, so nice of you to join us. I was just talking about really important stuff. I watched the pilot. ABC had really trumped it up as this like huge event. I remember, I was in 8th grade or something, and it just felt like must-see TV, sort of for the first time in my life.
Hold on, did you say 8th grade? I just want to clarify.
Yeah.
You said, okay.
Yeah.
He's a little younger than the rest of us.
Okay.
Yeah, and I remember, it was like funny to think about it now, like who they were marketing as the leads and stuff, like Dominic Monaghan from, Lord of the Rings and stuff. It was interesting. I remember watching it, and then as soon as that pilot ends, where you're like, oh, this is maybe going to be a sci-fi show. I was just hooked, just totally hooked. You hear the sounds of all the monsters in the jungle and stuff, and you're like, oh, sick, this is Jurassic Park, the show, or something like. And from that point forward, I was just totally hooked. And I used to watch it with my friends. And this is sort of why I have a strong argument against binge watching in a lot of ways, because it formed a lot of relationships for me. We used to meet up every like Wednesday or Thursday and watch the show and talk about it and theorize about it. And then every summer rewatch the previous seasons leading up, and read the blogs and watch shows like yours and stuff, listen to podcasts and stuff. So it was, for me, my first like deep dive into prestige television.
Well, you bring up a good point, and we've talked about it several times on here, that people, if it does come back, if they reboot it, I want it on cable. I would, but I don't want it to be, I want it to be maybe Hulu or HBO, not Netflix, because Netflix will just throw it all at once. Yeah. And this show wasn't meant to do that.
No. I could see maybe a world in which you do like a Band of Brothers style, 8 episodes, David Lindelof, awesome little mini series thing that's like ancillary and not these characters. But I think if you have like Jack or Sawyer or any of these people, it's like got to be on cable. Yeah.
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 And I would keep it tight. I would only do like 8 to 10 episodes, like because Westworld's only 8 episodes this season, and it just seems to me it's because a lot of these episodes, like we'll talk about, we had a really I thought we had a great episode and we had a fun episode, so to talk about today.
Nice way to put it.
Do you know if this was was this one of the writer strike episodes, or that's like the cage and stuff, right? Like when they're all, because I know season 3 the writer strike happened, and so for a good chunk of it they're like stretching.
Season 4?
Like 4.
Oh, it's 4, and that's why it's split in half.
Mm-hmm. Well, because season 3 they had a 6-episode pod.
That's what it is. Yeah.
And then they stopped for 4 months, and we went.
Yeah.
The big thing about season 3 was that they didn't have an end date, and so that's when they had the end date that came into play. So,
which I think helped the show a lot, because having the end date, they could tighten it up a little bit, and not have so many filler episodes and less flashbacks.
Well, I'm a huge just Lindelof fan in general, and to see what he's done since too, just picking his own end dates, ending Watchmen after 1 season in such a badass way, and then the leftovers too, just like tight and nice, is great. It's been awesome to see.
The Watchmen, I know a lot of people were bummed that it didn't come. It's not going to be a second season. But I said, what do you need a second? I mean, it was great, but I just, why take a chance on screwing it up?
Yeah, I feel that way about, people say that I loved Twin Peaks season 3. I just thought it was like the highest arc I've ever seen. I just think it's so incredible. I love David Lynch. And, a lot of people say, he should do a 4th season. And to me, it's like, just let David Lynch do another television show. Fargo's great, and Fargo is its own story each time. I don't need it to be anything other than an awesome David Lynch project. Like, of course, I love that world, but I'm also interested to see whatever he's got.
Yes, a storyteller has many stories to tell. So why pigeonhole them in one thing?
Because you're a writer, Morgan, right?
I am. Yeah, I'm a writer and a TV producer. Yeah.
Okay. So what shows? I was kind of reading over.
I came up through The Onion, so mostly comedy stuff. So I started at The Onion. I used to be a contributing writer to like Weekend Update on SNL and Letterman and stuff like that. So I used to write jokes and like fax them in. And then since then, I've bounced around directing shows for Netflix, and I just wrapped on a new Jim Henson project for Disney Plus. That'll be like a puppet talk show late night.
Oh,
series.
nice.
Oh,
nice.
I can't wait for that. That sounds like fun.
Yeah, it should be fun. It was cool. Yeah.
Well, that's cool. Good job.
And by the way, I loved The Onion when I was in 8th grade.
Yeah.
No,
it was a real onion.
No, I was in college at the time, but yeah, the Onion was so great. When I saw that there was a fake newspaper, I was like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. So, and I actually had a subscription for a whole year. My wife got it.
Oh, that's great. I'm sure you kept them afloat for like a full year.
I kept every issue. It was delivered to my home. Great. I was just like, this was awesome. This was
so you're a hoarder.
Of things that I love, yeah.
It's like, I think there's a cat under these.
Oh, don't get started on cats. Let's see.
I was going to say when you were reminiscing about friendships being made through Lost, I was also going to mention like friendships being strained through Lost, because I had a guy at work that, we talked about Lost all the time. He spoiled me on the casket, and it was one of those things where I was just like, you're dead to me. You're nothing. You're not a friend. You're not a brother. You're nothing.
Why did he spoil you?
I just think he had a certain joy out of like he knew something, and he wanted to share that, and it just was like, and it was going to air like it was like the day before or something, or the day of, like it was almost within moments, and it just felt like a betrayal.
It is a betrayal. It's very wrong, and I hope you're no longer friends, because that's unacceptable.
I think Matt killed him. Right?
No, I am not a serial killer.
Stabbed his heart.
No.
Well, I was also.
Go ahead, Jack.
I was also spoiled on who's in the casket from another podcast on their website. Somebody posted it. I go, and someone said, "That better not be true." And the guy kept saying, "It's true, it's true." I'm like, "Oh man!" And I was also spoiled on. I've talked about this before on Expose. I was spoiled ahead of time about the inn, that they were buried alive.
Oh, yeah.
From a caller, we were doing the podcast, and I was listening to phone calls, and someone in Canada called, and they got it an hour earlier. So I forget what it was, but he's going on about Nikki and Paulo dying. I go, what is he talking about? And I go, oh man. Anyway.
Oh my God.
That's why I don't do spoilers. I stay off all the things, and I didn't go on any websites. And even though I did a podcast for a site that was directly associated with a spoiler site, I still ignored everything, stayed off it, and didn't pay attention to anything, because I just wanted to ride the ride on my own. I didn't want to be influenced. I didn't read other people's blogs. I just wrote my own, and I'm just like, I just wanted to ride the ride myself, right or wrong. Whatever my own stupid theories were or whatever, I just wanted to, I just wanted to do it on my own. And just however it was going to turn out was going to turn out. But at least it was my journey. I just didn't want to know anything. I wanted to enjoy it.
I was laughing when you said stupid theories, because we all had them. So.
Well, come on.
Oh yeah.
But again, the joy of this thing being just a constantly evolving organism, and seeing, oh, this is going to happen, maybe this is going to happen, well, maybe it's a dinosaur. I mean, really stupid stuff,
right? But
really great stuff, because some brilliant stuff, all of a sudden gets revealed, and you're like, that's amazing. So we love that.
Yeah.
What Karen,
did anybody read? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I just was going to ask you the other. I know Jack's crazy theories, but I wanted to hear some of the other podcasters or video chatters craziest theories that you had when Lost was live.
I could tell you that. Well, I always had the and Jack knows this. The idea of I always watched the show as the metaphor part of it. So I kind of always gravitated to the part where they were really on a journey to enlightenment the whole time. But I would also, in my theories, or when I would talk about things either on the podcast or in one of my blogs, was there's a lot of elements to it, and one of them would be like the game element. This is very, very game-like, where you play the game of life almost, or you're a video game and you're like on a quest for things. So I would bring things like that into it, but it still was always based in, my perception was, I see these people on a journey to enlightenment in the metaphor part of what the story was about. So that's the trail I always took. So no matter what other kind of things I would add into that, because I would have to address the literal things that we saw as well, not just the metaphor part of the story. So if I would kind of try to explain how maybe one of my ideas fed into the metaphor of it, oh my God, I got such hate mail. I got such hate email. I got so railed because, and I'm like, it's okay, guys. You don't have to see it how I see it. It's
right.
This is you take your journey. I'll take mine. If you want to read what I wrote, if you want to hear what I said on the podcast, fine. If you don't, you don't have to. But let's just see how this all plays out. That's all. We're just here to brainstorm and share each of our own experiences. Because come on, don't you feel like to some extent everybody did have their own experience with the show?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Right. So there is no. I always felt there is no right. There is no wrong. There is no super duper crazy. It was just everybody was coming from a different angle on it. So my theory was all along was they were basically this experience or adventure they were on was leading them on this journey to enlightenment. And I just threw a whole bunch of other stuff on top of that too. So.
Yeah, right.
What about you, Morgan?
Well, I used to read. Did anybody read any of the articles by Jay Wood in Powell's books? They were incredible, and they still are. I was like rereading some of them today. He was this like very mysterious figure who I think a lot of people thought was Damon Lindelof because he was a like literary professor who would read all the books that were in the show and then write these like extraordinarily detailed analysis of how like Philip K. Dick's Valis mapped to season 4. So I took a very like extraordinarily nerdy approach. I actually skipped my prom to watch the season 4 premiere.
Awesome.
And it was cool. It was like, Jay Wood was writing a lot of stuff about how like Egypt was going to be really critical to things. And then I remember like as soon as season 4 began, it was like the big foot. And it was just very interesting. He wrote a lot about Philip K. Dick's exegesis, which was his whole thing about how he, in 1970s Los Angeles, had a wisdom tooth pulled and was like high as heck on morphine, and somebody knocked on his door wearing like a Jesus fish necklace, and somehow like the light refracted off of it and into his brain, and he felt like a purple laser beam had hit him in the head, and suddenly he was living in pre-Christian Rome and 1970s Los Angeles on top of each other. And that became the novel Valis, but it's also something that happened to Philip K. Dick. And it's sort of Desmond's story, right down to the purple laser beam. And so it was just very cool. And so me and my friends would like meet up. We had like a book club around Lost. And I remember it always being so disappointing when they would throw a book in and it would just be like, oh, it's just about like how the guy had a twin or whatever. And then you'd get something like Valis and you're like, oh my God, this is like the key to the whole show.
Well, yeah,
and it was and wasn't.
Right, but those Easter eggs, they're not even Easter eggs. They're literally hints to the whole trail of the show. Again, okay. I'll use the game example, and then lo and behold, we get this thing in season 6 about Jacob and Man in Black learning to play this game together. So things always are dropped there. It's just how we're retrieving them, picking them up, and I loved exploring the books that were talked about in the show.
Well, in the end, wasn't it a game between Jacob and Man in Black?
Yes.
Yeah, of course.
Yep.
Jacob wanted to beat him, and he said, because I think Man in Black says when he's a kid, he says, "Someday, Jacob, you can have a game and make up a game and invent your own rules," something to that effect, and that's what Jacob did. Sydney in the chat said, before Jacob and his brother episode, I had a theory that Jacob was God, and he was playing a game with the people who he forced to the island for amusement. Well, I think it's pretty close.
That's
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah,
close.
it's pretty close. It's Fantasy Island, right? Did anybody have any theories that they felt like were better than what happened on the show? I don't want to be too much hubris here, but I my whole thing forever was, I mean, I just thought Walt was going to be the most important thing in the world, and I contend he was going to be until he grew up too fast.
I think he was. He grew too fast.
And then the other one was, I always thought that the Black Rock ended up on the island, not because they got into some storm or something, but because the island moved and came up from under it. And I still think that would have been the coolest thing to see.
Yeah, that's a great theory. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm surprised that they didn't, I mean, you know, with all the things that they shoehorned in, I'm surprised they didn't just say like, oh, the island's having an effect on Walt and he's growing faster. He's aging. That, you know, and just like write it in, you know, like, and maybe they just didn't think of that at that time. But Morgan, to your point, I also like I did the audiobook for Valis, you know, and I remember like where I was when I was like listening to that. It's a very trippy, you know, I have a lot of Philip K. Dick novels that I've read, and some really, really interesting stuff because it's part of a trilogy. There's the Ubik and Valis, and then there's another one, and I can't think of
Timothy Archer or something, or like the
I think
like that.
it was towards the end of his life too that those were written. My crazy theory, Jack knows it. I was a big fan of Alvar Hanzo. I always wanted Alvar Hanzo to be like at the center of the island in a volcano, you know, like absorbing the energy or some kind of, you know. And so I always wanted there to be like some kind of volcano energy center, and I felt that we got close to that with the final and seeing Jack and the cork of the island. So, you know, there's certain things that like you guessed and you're like, okay, well, that's close. I like that, you know, like, and it works for you.
Well, I don't know if you know this, but there was supposed to be a volcano on the island, and that was like a big thing. I can't remember what season, but in one of the commentaries, this is some deep-dive stuff, but I remember in one of the commentaries, Carlton Cuse is like, there's some classroom scene, and on the blackboard is a big volcano, and he's like, pay attention to the volcano because it's going to be as explosive as blah, blah, blah. And then it's just, you know, I think probably ABC was like, you want to shoot on a volcano?
I think it was Ben's flashback where we find out he wasn't born on the island. I think that's what it was, because it's a young Ben flashback. Because he's on the swing with a young blonde girl, and I always thought it was Kate's
Annie
mom
or something, right?
Right. I always thought it was Kate's mom.
Yeah. That would have been great,
and that didn't happen. So
yeah. Well, I also paid a lot of attention to the alternate reality games. Like I was so into those,
Me too,
and it's always so frustrating, I think, as a fan when you just, and now like working in the business, I'm just so aware of like how little involvement anybody in the actual show had in that stuff. It's just like all of Paramount or like ABC marketing department or something. And how much stock I put in that stuff. And then, you know, the show would premiere and you're like, oh, it had nothing to do. Like, I remember there were all these theories.
It right up though. We sucked it right up.
There were all these theories about it, like connecting to Cloverfield and it was like, no.
I can remember podcasting about it and then telling Jack, how many times are we going to be burned with this? Like, I guess people want to talk about it, but it doesn't really matter. It seems like you were mentioning the books, because a lot of times the books, I swear they were just doing that. Sometimes it was relevant, but a lot of times it was just like, yeah, we're just going to throw that out there just to mess with you and to keep you going and stuff like that.
Well, like that Lost Twin book or whatever that came out as part of the show. Yeah, Dad Twin,
Bad Twin,
yeah.
I think some things were just meant to keep us busy.
Yeah, and it worked. It totally worked.
Bill in the chat said about Walt, his acting skills might not have grown in proportion, so maybe just didn't have it.
Like again, like if he's growing, you know, you could always like the island had a surge, and then boom, it's a different actor or something like that.
Well, I thought he was a good little actor when he was younger. I mean, I know he went to music. He went to music. Yeah, but I mean, I thought he held his own with some of the great actors on that show.
And obviously, like I do kind of wonder though too, like with Echo, like if that was going to be like whatever they had planned with Walt, if they ended up like saying, okay, well, we're going to use Echo to fill in what we had planned with Walt, or something like that.
Right.
And then, of course, Echo, the actor, wanted out. And so then they're just like, okay, scrap all of that. And to the people that were frustrated with it, they didn't have it all planned out. I always got really frustrated with those people because I'm like, okay, any artist, whether you're a writer, a painter, a musician, you never have the end of the song planned as you're writing the beginning of the song. It does not work that way.
I'm a musician. I know it's an evolution, and you rewrite, and it's that's what creativity is. It's
organic.
It's right. You're going to it has to tell its story. It has to. Your voice has to be brought out, and it's going to do what it's going to do, and you're going to change your mind, and that's part of being creative.
That's art.
Painters have started over. Painters, okay, and that is what art and creativity is. It is organic, and I get so irked when especially all those years. Oh well, they knew where they were going to end it, and they should have did this, or they, it was going to be this, and they would. Wait a minute, let storytellers tell their story. It's got to evolve. You can't just say, okay, I'm getting from point A to point B. Yes, I know working with networks and stuff, they have some say in things. That's a different thing. But as the artist, you have to organically let these things come to light.
Yeah, and every time I work on a painting, there's always a point in the painting where I say, okay, I have to work back into this, and everything is fair game. Anything can be destroyed, and you have to be willing to sacrifice the things that you did from the very beginning to the very end in order to make that come to life. I use a roller coaster metaphor. When they build roller coaster rides, the structural aspect of the roller coaster actually has to sway and bend. If it doesn't move, if it doesn't allow for the swaying to occur, you will die. Right. Like it won't work. So it actually has to move. And I think of that with art. So
absolutely. I agree 100%.
So today I'm with three creative people, and I'm not creative. So that's
you brought us together. I would not be a podcaster if it wasn't for Jack. So.
That's right.
Well, Jack, there's actually an intervention. We all three have decided
we have some things we want to talk to you about.
Yeah.
I start something, I might not even finish.
We wanted to do it in person, but yeah, I'm going to turn this light on.
Bill says the island was a spaceship.
Oh,
that was a theory out there.
I did hear that theory. I did.
That was a theory. I know that was a theory. That was a lot of.
lot
of theory. I never bought that one.
I'm going to tell you something that I don't know if I should tell. I don't know if it's true or not, whatever. But I know one of the writers of season 1. I'm not going to say who it is, but he did tell me in confidence that during the original spitball of the show, when they were like trying to figure out what was going on and everything, spaceship was like very high up there.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm glad they didn't go that way. and who knows? A lot of ideas are thrown out in a writer's room. So
of course.
Yeah, and they didn't go with it, so it didn't mean that it was ever in serious.
That was a good choice, but
yeah.
Anyway, we're like 23 minutes. Do you guys want to talk about Man from Tallahassee?
Sure.
Yeah.
Let's do
it. I didn't know if you guys were trying to avoid expose. I didn't know if that was the.
I love expose. No. Wait till we get there.
I'm kidding. I'm just joking. So, what did you guys think of Man from Tallahassee?
Love it.
It's great. It's great. Any Locke episode, give me a Locke episode. Like Absolutely. Just anything about Locke and Locke's journey. I was always a Locke fan. I think one of the rare Lost fans who just couldn't stand Jack. Just couldn't stand him. I was always like, yes, blow up that submarine. I had a ton of friends that were like, what? Like, I want Jack to get off the island. I'm like, there goes the show. Like, no, and then little did I know pretty soon that happened. But yeah, I love this episode. I think it's so interesting. To me, it was just sci-fi candy with the box thing, which sort of plays. Oh, yeah. I know, JJ's involvement is speculative towards like the later seasons, but I do think, everybody's seen his TED Talk about like how storytelling is creating a magic box and asking.
But there's the metaphor angle that I always take.
Yeah.
And that this episode depicts that wonderfully.
But
Yeah.
in prep for this, I just basically was writing down five things from each episode because I knew everybody else would have things to talk about. But on that list of 5 was the box, and I wrote metaphor. Those were the 2 things that I wrote down. So, it's just like, because it was so quintessential, we knew that about JJ. We had heard that metaphor, and the fact that it was like in the show, it's and when I just jumped in, because I just jumped into this episode and I was like, okay, where are we at? And I was like, oh, the box metaphor is in this episode. I forgot about that.
I forgot that. I think when Morgan and I were talking before you guys came on, I forgot this was the episode we find out how Locke ends up in a wheelchair. It wasn't until about halfway. I go, that's right. I forgot about that because you remember the scenes, but you forget the whole thing. And it's just because when Locke goes to, he goes to the flower shop to confront his dad after Peter Talbot came to him. Why does he still trust his dad? Why? Why would he go? You need to call this off and da da da. I'm like going. I just would have walked in there and you stole my kidney. I would have walked in there and told the woman right away. He's just conning you. He's a con guy.
Yeah, citizen arrest.
Not Locke. Locke goes in there. You got to do this, and of course, John. John. I'll do that. You can trust me because I've always been there for you.
Well, I mean,
what's funny though is,
yeah, go ahead.
I didn't think of the box. I mean, I know that it's a metaphor, but at the time, I remember just thinking like, he's telling the truth. This island is so amazing. There is this box on it, which is really a talent of writing to know that Ben Linus is the biggest liar in the world. All he does is lie and still just want answers as to what is happening on this island. And then here's this character who's like, I have them. Here's this box. And you're like, we're going to see the box. And then everything will be explained. I just remember like feeling that like so viscerally by the time the episode ended, like sitting with all my friends being like, I cannot wait to see that freaking box.
You're still waiting.
I was just going to say to the point of like Locke and here he is in the past, and you can see that basically like he's trying to do the right thing. Right.
Yes.
And to juxtapose that with what happens in the episode, this is after Locke has been basically like crippled by his own father. He's on the island. He's no longer trying to do what's right for other people, right? And then when it brings it to the sub being blown up, it's just like
he's all about himself.
He's all about himself or what the island wants.
Right, but see, and okay, what the island wants, and that's a great way to put it, because he feels, as much as Ben says, everything I've done for the island. But really, it's John who knows he's there for a certain purpose. And I know in one of my notes that I put on my site that I pulled off, one of my notes that I actually wrote was, when you mentioned John is doing really just for himself or what the island wants, I actually wrote down, it seems as if John is trying to find ways to keep Jack on the island on purpose, almost as if he knows Jack has to stay there for a reason until he finds what he's looking for. And it's John's role to make Jack stay there and do the right thing, just like he's trying to get Anthony Cooper to do the right thing in The Flash.
But
so that was my take on it.
But does John
that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything, but
No, I think that's like really like Lindeloffian, is this sort of almost like religious devotion to the unknown, right? Like I just showed my girlfriend The Leftovers. We watched the whole thing. She couldn't stand the ending. I think it's a phenomenal show and love the ending. But to see like the journeys of so many characters on that show and watching it as a Lost fan, you're just like, that's Locke. There's another Locke.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, does Locke have that? Because it's almost like Jacob. Jacob brought people to the island. He didn't give them a choice. He brought them to the island. A lot of them died. Is Locke what gives Locke the right to say, okay, Jack, you can't leave the island?
Well, I think that's the tragedy of Locke, is that his whole life he thinks that he's special, and we know this and blah blah blah. But then he thinks that like he's operating and controlling things and making things happen for the island, only to find out that he's just a pawn like everybody else in Jacob's game, and that is so sad until I think he ultimately realizes like, well, that's wonderful and everything. And, I experienced a lot of great things through that.
Because in this episode, you see, especially with, when Kate and Saeed are trying to rescue Jack, Locke had his own agenda. He's going to after Ben. So he leaves them hanging. And so he's eating chicken, fried chicken, or what he was eating chicken, while Saeed is chained to a swing, and Kate's. So here's a lot. And you go, God, that guy just, because episodes before he did the same thing. He blew up the station, and and he did all these different things, and he was playing the in 77. He was playing the computer chess game, even though he knew he was being watched. Why Saeed and Kate were being fighting with Patchy and stuff, but but at the end of the episode, you're like going, okay, I can't hate him. Because you feel so bad for him because what happened to him, getting pushed out 8 stories and surviving.
Yeah. And then on top of it, like he was like dating a woman he met on the phone.
Right.
He's like very sad.
Yeah,
he works at a box company. I mean, geez, they really laid it on thick.
Yeah, and he's he lost his kidney was stolen, and because even Peter Tauber goes, "You only have one kidney, right?" No soliciting. But
I have a sign.
That is pretty.
But at the like I said, the whole episode, I'm like, oh, God, that Locke, he just drives me crazy. I mean, again, the show doesn't work without John Locke. It doesn't. His character, I don't think I could be around him. I think we'd brawl. I think he'd get to the point where he just drive me crazy.
They gave him some great lines this episode, though, with the whole because I'm standing and you're in a wheelchair, or you're in a wheelchair and I'm not, and then also, I hope that box is big enough for a submarine. Is like one of the funniest lines in all of Lost. Yeah.
And how crazy we get the box metaphor, and he worked for a box company. Huh?
Yes. Well, he's a box man because he's you know why? Okay, here I go. Start hating. Ready? People send me hate mail because he's boxed in. He is boxed in with emotions. That's what it is. It's a metaphor being I'm boxed in and I'm trying to find a way to get out of it. So, see, in a past life, I was a philosophy major and a psychiatrist. So, but that was in a past life.
Well, to take that one step further, though.
Yeah.
To take that one step further, though, also on my top five list here of things from this episode is that scene at the end. The submarine blowing up, this boxed in thing, explosion of emotion. And that scene is so good when he's like sweaty and like looking at Jack and confronting him, and he's just got that smirky grin of just.
And Jack goes, "I want to smack you."
Yeah, like I felt like at that moment, I mean, you knew that they were adversaries, but at that moment, it was just kind of like, to Jack, like Locke was dead to him. Like it just was like this was kind of the beginning of the end of their friendship. I felt like this was like a no going back after this moment between the two of them. Jack having this freedom being ripped from him. It just felt so brutal.
But also, if you recall, Ben was kind of appreciative to John, saying, "I kind of knew you were going to do something to make sure that the submarine wasn't in play anymore, basically, because I couldn't do it because then my people, I need to have the submarine so that they have the illusion that they can leave, but I couldn't kill Jack because then they would not trust me. So I knew if I just let you do the thing, it would kind of take down, I'm changing words around it. That was basically the idea of him knowing we just let John do what John's got to do and he'll take the submarine out of play anyway. So it actually benefited Ben in that regard. But for Locke, it was his way of keeping Jack on the island.
Well, that's where you have the great scenes between Terry O'Quinn and Michael Emerson. I mean, the way they're going back and forth. You even have where Locke says, kind of points out to Ben, he goes, "Oh, how did you get sick in the first place? An island that healed. How are you getting sick?"
Yeah.
Because Ben was wondering, when you started walking again, were you walking right away? But he had to have known because Ethan was there, right?
Right.
So
Edith
he
was
probably
already there.
knew the information already, right? You would think so.
Yeah, I would assume that, you know, if he has like the manifest, that he knows all about who John Locke is, unless, well, actually, I guess he might have not known right away, because didn't they have to research everybody that was on the thing? Like, that's why Ethan was there, was to like snag who's there so they can start looking it up.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, so like it probably then did a deep dive on who Locke was, and then he also probably did a deep dive with Nikki and Paolo and was like, "Oh, who cares?"
Right.
Like, there are so many extras. There are so many extras on this show that you never see, and it's so funny to imagine everybody at Dharmaville being like, "This guy's probably important. Who cares? Who cares?"
Well, they're big on lists. They're
Jacob
big on
touched this
making
guy.
lists.
Yeah.
I have to mention because I think we've talked about everything on my list, not Jacob's list, but one thing we haven't mentioned, which was just such a beautiful scene, is that scene of Jack playing piano. Like how, you know, that was just one of those moments where it's just so lovely, so beautiful, the music and like that interaction between him and Kate, like that was just one of those standout scenes, you know, like what does it mean? Who cares? But it was just like so moving, and I felt powerful in this episode to have that element. So,
well, he does want to protect her, and that's beautiful. But it was good to see him. I mean, we've not seen that peaceful, artistic side of Jack. We only see the controlling Jack. We see the, you know, I need to be in charge of everything, Jack.
mm-hmm.
You know, and so to see him actually have a moment of pause and quiet, and actually being creative for a moment, playing this lovely piece. But when he comes in, his first instinct is to make sure that Kate gets out, because he wants to protect her.
Yeah.
And Kate doesn't listen.
Well, it's Kate.
Well, Kate. Yeah, I mean, you
Kate,
can't come. Kate.
I'm being watched.
We always used to say that to each other. It'd be like, we'd like pile in the car to like go to, you know, something, and somebody would be like, "Can I, you know, do you have enough room?" It'd be like, "You can't come, Kate."
You think that Kate was obviously jealous when she saw how Juliet touched Jack, right?
Yes.
Oh yeah, that's what I love about this show so much, is they operate on that great like love triangle, Grey's Anatomy thing, and the soapy stuff, and then at the exact same time have like this science faith thing going, and it's all totally important, and it all informs each other, and it's great. I mean, it's just great.
Because you have where Kate and Jack, where Tom brings Jack in, and they're talking, and she goes, "Oh, did he tell you about?" Because Jack mentioned something about Sawyer, but Jack knows because he saw it, and Kate is upset that Jack knows what happened with her and Sawyer.
Right.
I mean, it's not actually said, but you can tell.
Right.
You know, Jack.
Yeah.
We know Jack knows, and now Kate knows that Jack knows. Not how he knows.
I mean, you can't cheat on a desert island. You're gonna get.
She could say, it meant nothing to me. Once we got back to camp, I stopped calling him James, and he was Sawyer again.
Yeah, we were so far away. We were a mile that way.
So talking about cheating, then we are so all over this episode, but I'm enjoying every second of it. But while you bring up the word cheating,
Cheating maybe too harsh.
This is you're bringing up the word cheating, and there is a scene in this episode where John accuses Ben of cheating on the island.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And,
that's right.
And that's an amazing bit of dialogue as well, because here is Locke kind of infiltrating Ben's space. And now all of a sudden, John has this attitude of like, I know more what this island is than you do, and you're just cheating this whole thing. You're cheating your people. You're cheating all by living this way, and you don't. And what John says is you don't even know what this island really is. Like
Right.
John does. And I'm like, wow. When I remember seeing that for the first time, I'm like, well, then, holy cow, John really knows what this island really is. So what the hell is it? What is the island? You know.
Yeah.
You know, that was my first reaction back in the day when I saw it. So I found that to be pretty interesting, that Ben doesn't really have the upper hand. Here's somebody who's just walking in, strutting in, saying, now, wait a minute, I know something you don't know. Because if you knew what I'd know, you wouldn't behave this way. You would not be cheating.
Because they have electricity and they have chicken. And
well, and I always felt like that was a commentary on the fact that, like, you know, Locke's approach to the island was just one of nature almost. You know, it had he saw it as a pure thing. Yeah,
Yes.
like and that it was not to be embedded with all of this other things.
Right, absolutely.
The things of man.
Technology. So,
yeah, like
right.
I mean, the whole rainstorm thing is him communing with nature.
Yes,
and it ties back to this idea of he is a man of faith. He is a man of almost
right. And he believes in the connectivity of man and nature. That's why he wanted to go on his walkabout. He wanted to be one with nature and, you know, survive on his own devices, you know. So he's that's an important thing to him. So he sees, we know, and Jack, I think we talked about this the last time I was on, that he saw into the eye of the island, and what he saw was beautiful.
right.
So that's important to John, and he doesn't want anybody messing that up.
Well, technology, any like punching in the numbers, it's all. I mean, that's why I think he was just like anti-punching in the numbers. At some point, he just saw through it all as just like this is just interference with pure nature. Yeah,
right. This is nonsense.
I also think, you know, his fear too is that somebody's going to come there and exploit. Like if you come back and forth, then that means you could be inviting people there, and that could be bad too. You know, like in order to preserve the nature, obviously, right? Like you don't want people coming and going and you know, establishing power lines and hiding atomic bombs there. You know, you want it how it should be.
Well, Ben makes a good point too, where they're having that give and take, where he goes, "Well, you're afraid to get off this island because you don't know if you'll be back in the wheelchair, basically."
Right. Mm-hmm.
And John didn't know what to say. So I'm sure that's what John's thinking, because I always say, who wants off that island? Who doesn't want off the island? I mean, there was a lot of people I couldn't imagine. I don't never understood why Kate wanted off the island. And
makes no sense.
There's certain people I was like going, why do you want off the island? Your life is not going to be. I mean, Rose, I think, said it best when she didn't want to get off the island because she was cured of her cancer.
Right.
Yeah.
So she maybe she knew more about the island than anybody, but she just didn't have a major role, so we don't know.
That's that novel you're working on.
Yeah.
So
what about Rose? If Rose had been a series regular, yeah.
She had some of the best lines in the.
Oh, she's great. I love her. Her storyline is awesome. She's fantastic.
Yeah. Sydney says that nothing stays secret on the island. That's for sure, and that is the absolute truth. We do know that nothing stays a secret. It all.
They
all
try.
They try, because as human beings, there's things that we try to hide, but somehow that stuff bubbles out somehow. You know. I love that we got a nod to McCutcheon whiskey. You know.
Yeah.
That was nice to show that you know, things again are connected somehow, but just how much.
Only the rich, powerful white men get it. So McCutcheon's whiskey for some reason.
So Mike, the chances of me getting a bottle of it are completely out.
I think so, yeah. Because I mean, who else has it?
I'm the total opposite of all that.
I have some beer in my refrigerator. That's about it.
Is it Dharma beer?
No, it's not Dharma beer. No.
That stuff must be so skunked. It's got to just be disgusting. I mean, that is like warm island beer. I don't know.
But if you haven't had beer in a while, I guess, you know, it's beer.
That's true.
I guess.
I'd be going with some fermented coconut water or something, you know.
I'm not a fan of even cold beer out of a can, so I don't know if I could drink cold beer out of a can. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say upon the idea of liquor and what have you. I'm also in the middle of kind of a Battlestar Galactica rewatch myself, because what better to do in quarantine?
They have a drinker on that show.
They have a lot of drinkers, and that show makes you want to drink. I'm like, okay, Colonel Ty, I'll have one with you. And then pretty soon you're like, you've got the shit. But like, they have so much.
You're cutting all the corners off your books and getting tanked in your house.
But I mean, like, they make their own liquor at some point, and that stuff's gotta taste awful, because like how much alcohol can you take on a spaceship and have with you?
Oh yeah, it's coming out of fuel. That's fuel.
Right.
Yeah. So drinking moonshine made out of rocket fuel.
Yeah, like
and still talking. Yeah.
So
I had never seen Game of Thrones, which I know is blasphemous, and I just finished it a couple days ago, and I probably went through a case of wine a week watching that show. They make it so appetizing.
Now you drink and you know things now. So
exactly.
That's true. Yeah.
I was waiting for that, Karen. Thank you.
That's
exactly what I thought.
It was there to be said.
Shows that make us drink, right?
Yeah.
Mad Men, Game of Thrones.
Oh, Mad Men, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hey, some shows are so bad you have to drink to watch them.
That's
last
true.
season of Dexter,
Oh my God. You couldn't give me enough alcohol for that one.
Yeah.
We're sending I don't want to talk about it.
It's better than that.
I did want to talk about the scene where Locke confronts his dad. He goes to the hotel. And again, I'm like going, okay, Locke, why do you trust this guy? Why do you want to believe? And his dad's so cool. His dad's just is a great, he's just a great con man. And then, the phone's over there, and then he pushes his son out the window, and because he even tells Ben, what was it like breaking your back? He goes, yeah, I can hear my back, my spine crushing. And it's like,
yeah.
It's just like, oh my God. And then when he pushes them out, you gotta go, oh.
How did he not fall out of the window as well? Like you have the force of pushing.
Yeah, you think the momentum, but I think maybe gone.
You got to break the glass with his body. And then it's the physics of it. I'm just wondering how he didn't,
And then he was able to get out of the country, right?
He doesn't look like a strong man, but boy, to push another man out the window, that takes some determination.
He was pretty strong on emergency.
So
yes.
and when he was saving people.
And to think Jorge was just a couple floors down, right?
I like too how the cops are like, he's gone. We'll never find him. He's gone. Yeah, we're done looking. He's probably in Mexico or something.
Yeah.
All he's done is murder two people, murder a person, and attempted murder.
Yeah.
We'll catch up to him later.
It's like the cops from The Big Lebowski. They're like, forget about that Creedence tape. You're never going to see that again. So.
But the marshal will travel all over the world to get Kate.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Because Kate's public enemy number one.
Well, that's because they were having an affair, Jack, and I'm with you on that crackpot theory.
I think that there was something more there.
Oh, damn. That's interesting.
Yeah, because he's so upset.
He is obsessed with her. There's no doubt.
She called him. She was playing games with him. There was always something more there than what they told us. But I can believe what I want to believe. But
maybe she slept with him to try to get away from him. And then he got burned by that. He got burned by Kate, and that's.
What about Occam's razor? He's just a total creep.
Yeah, dude.
I've been using that a lot lately, Morgan. Occam's razor, yes. So.
He's just a creepy dude.
We forgot to mention that Rousseau sees Alex.
Oh, that's true.
And that was such a touching scene because before they go in, she just takes off. We don't know where she goes.
That's right.
And she doesn't say anything because there's a couple episodes before where in her 7-7, or that was the one after that. But either way, Kate goes, "You never talk about your daughter." She goes, "Well, maybe I'm worried about what it's been 16 years. Maybe I'm afraid that she won't want to talk to me. She won't want to see me." Yeah. And Kate's like, "Oh. My bad."
Slowly back out of her room. Yeah.
But it was a great job of Rousseau putting Kate back in her place, but she was 100% right.
Does anyone remember? I think this is the timeline, but I feel like around this time, the woman who played Alex, the actress, was dating Jeff Goldblum.
Yes, that was.
There was like a huge age gap, and there were all these photos of them like walking around Williamsburg together at the time. I remember being like, "Oh, okay."
That's true.
Wow, I didn't know
She
about
said
that.
she was playing a younger, character than her age, right?
Yes, but not compared to Jeff Goldblum. He was still his age.
Yeah.
There's a lot of actors that fall into that camp, so
Of course.
I don't really want to go down that road.
Actors,
But
politicians.
I did also want to mention that this episode sets up one of, I think, the grittiest episodes of all of season 3, which I know you'll be getting to in your Lost rewatch here, Jack. It's coming up. But when Sawyer actually confronts the man from Tallahassee,
Oh, yeah.
and how powerful that episode is. I mean, I think it's one of the darkest episodes that I can think of from.
I thought Josh
season.
Holloway was excellent in that episode.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a,
absolutely
and I don't want to talk too much, don't want to steal, but I love how this episode sets that up. It puts those things in play. So
Yeah, all of those threads are there. Just like when John in this particular episode is in his apartment back in the olden days when they dyed his hair a really funky color, but whatever, we'll buy it. And and Peter Talbot knocks on his door, but John Locke is actually watching an episode of Expose on the TV.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Oh,
Well, it's Hurley's favorite show. So.
It's
Yeah,
the
it's so
greatest
funny
show.
that they find the script and they're like, "Oh, this is what's
This is the
happening." Like how
greatest show.
lucky you'd be to find the script.
But it's like Baywatch, but better.
I like Sawyer. Yeah, it sounds like a real winner.
All right. But
Oh,
I don't know. So the man from Tallahassee we discover is actually Anthony Cooper. After all is said and done, I mean, so obviously, like we just acknowledged that does kind of foreshadow and give us our Sawyer episode to come.
Right.
But this con man, I mean, is despicable. So to John stealing his kidney, getting conned out of that, he's not going to let it go because he feels again that you're my father. You're not supposed to behave that way. But that's who Anthony is.
But he just feels bad. But I can remember at the ending when we get the reveal that you're like, and I had the same look that Locke has at the end.
Yeah. Dad? What?
What?
That's what came out. That's what came out of the box. You're kidding me, right?
And then of course Locke, Dad.
Yeah.
You still call him Dad at this point. I mean, I don't know.
That is crazy too. Yeah, that I agree with. I also just think it's so hard, I think, to build up for 2 whole acts. There's this magic box and something's gonna come out of it and we don't know what it is. And then to have the episode end where you're still like, what? It's that? That's so impressive to see them pull off, how hard and how disappointing that could be and what a fine line you're treading, just trying to, get these expectations up so high and then meet them by the end of an episode. It's insane. I mean, you could have opened it up and you'd be like, it's a horse, I don't.
It's
It's just so great. They nailed it.
It's such a wonderful metaphor that's what's in poor boxed in John Locke's soul that he can't let go of, is this nonsense and this tie and pain that he's carrying around from his father. And
I understand
what's in. Yeah, and I think it's just that I just thought that this episode illustrated it beautifully.
Well, it's like everybody. His mom.
Yeah.
Helen.
She was insane.
Because my theory of Helen is that she was working with Anthony Cooper. She just leaves like, oh, I'm out of here, John. Like, come on. If you truly love somebody, you have to understand what he's going through. What I mean, you'd have to understand. Unless she just didn't love him. So, anyway.
Matt, did you go retrieve more notes?
Did I what?
Did you go retrieve more notes?
No, well, just for the next episode, which I don't know why, because I don't have much.
Was your notepad too heavy? You couldn't bring them both?
Yeah. It just says, who is Nikki?
Expose.
All it says.
I don't know why everybody rags on Expose, but...
But I did
Someone just said, I think Locke should have said razzle dazzle when he saw his dad, and I think that's
set up, right?
That was Matt.
Yeah.
But I did want to say this episode did give us a lot because we do also Alex finds out that her mom is alive.
Right.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
there's so much going, and it's like, oh, how's that going to happen? What's going to happen with that? Is she going to,
Right. And Saeed's the one that breaks the news to her.
right?
Yeah. So it's like,
Then
yep.
Then he gets hit
Yeah.
for it, punch.
Yep. You're not. They just told you she was dead, but she's not. So
She looks just like you.
yeah.
I went on a quick. Sorry, I know you're probably throwing the expose. I went to Japan a couple of years ago and intentionally took a layover in Honolulu so I could rent a car, drive to the YMCA camp where they filmed all of this. Took a ton of photos, got back in my car, went to the airport, flew home.
Spoken like a true Lost fan. That's right.
Yeah.
They even have one of the numbers on it. Isn't one of the numbers painted on the
Yeah,
ground?
and it was so funny too. There's a guest book you have to sign in because there's like kids around and stuff, and you open up the guest book and it's like lost. There's like everybody's there. It's great. Yeah,
It is fun to visit that. I mean, it's seeing this where they film it and stuff like that. Plus, it's Hawaii, so
I love it. Yeah.
But anyway, any other thoughts on A Man from Tallahassee? Great episode, good episode.
I loved it. I thought it was great. Gave us a lot of. It gave us the huge bite into what John Locke, what his
Spider
pain,
bite?
where it was coming from. In other words, his pain wasn't just coming from Dad stealing his kidney. It was Dad threw him out the window. So I mean, he's literally carrying.
I think that's worse than stealing his kidney.
Right. Exactly. He literally threw the window. So.
And we find at the beginning they do a great job because you think that he's his disability is being reevaluated.
Yeah.
You're thinking, well, how's he not getting disability? Because and then the twist is
it's psychological, right?
It's depression, and he is depressed.
And that he was
depressed.
raised in an orphanage as well as a
Right.
foster.
But you know what? See, remember when John and the father wanted his kidney and everything, and after Anthony gets the kidney, he tells John, when John keeps going back to the house, like, why isn't my father seeing me? I gave him my kidney. But his father actually says, don't come here anymore. I don't want you. Like, he basically fluffs him off. Go away. I don't want you. I don't want you here. And in this episode, Man from Tallahassee, how much plainer could it be? I don't want you. He literally throws him out the window. So it can't get any more plainer than that. So John just doesn't want to accept that. And
but John,
he's never going to have he's never going to get his father's love. That's it.
he was laying there like 8 stories down, going, "Dad,
No, why'd you do that?
Toss me the ball.
can we have a catch?"
Like catch.
That's
By
hilarious.
the way, the man from Tallahassee is a very elegant way of saying Florida man. So
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
funny.
yeah. So
Yeah.
sorry.
I think this episode is it's one of those great examples of Lost where it's not like filler per se. You're still learning a lot about the characters, but you can tell they're laying track down for something larger, and yet it's still completely entertaining. It's like not a bottle episode. It's just like great fun, and you're like learning a ton about Locke and the dynamic and everything, which is like really just like what makes the show great overall. And then you go right into Expose, which is
Razzle
I don't know
dazzle.
what that is like.
Well, let's get into razzle
I
dazzle.
love Expose.
It's a
Oh,
fun,
funny.
it's a fun popcorn episode. I mean, we did have. I'll let you guys start it because I don't know where to start.
It's a fun episode, but yet it gives us a ton of information, and I think that's really cool. We get a lot of days happening. We have countdown of all the days that Nikki and Paolo are with them on the
And they were
beach
there
and
the whole time.
what's happening. They were there the whole time. Nobody cared. They just blended into the background. Nobody really cared. But Nikki is on the show, and she plays Nikki. She's Corvette. She's the pride of St. Paul. How ridiculous is that? But that's all I learn about. Little shot is the Cobra, played by Billy D. Williams, by the way. Just have to throw it there.
Yeah, that's a a huge shout out, and I think the fact that they like threw him in there, it was just like, how can we get Billy D on the? It's like he can't just show up. Like
nobody cooler than Billy D.
Okay, I mean Landau Calrissian right, Billy D. Landau Calrissian is in a Lost episode. How awesome is that? But anyway, we're learning that Shad is a Cobra. So that little bit that's happening in that little bit of the episode in the front actually kind of gives us a lot of info, because Howard says, and this is right smack in the beginning when she gets shot in the episode, Howard says to her, you don't need to die. We could bring you back next season. Mm-hmm. Now, as trite of a line that is, and it's really nodding to, hey, these characters weren't really welcomed on the show, so we're writing them off on purpose. That was really cute and everything. But that line is really important because they're already letting us know you're going to die in this episode, but you're not really dead. They get buried alive. So I found that to be a nice little clever way of writing that little detail into there. So anyway, that's my 2 cents on the opening.
That's great.
You guys were talking about older, Jeff Goldblum and young Alex. Well, here you got young Nikki and old producer
Howard.
Guy. Howard,
yeah. I also think it's funny that they felt the need to like they're murderers too. Like not only like do you not know anything about them, and here they are, and here's an episode about them, and we're going to kill them off, and they've been around for all these things. But also, it's just important to know that they murdered somebody, so they're going to get theirs, and then they're allowed to just. I mean, what glee the writers take and just like murdering people.
I mean, Nikki Apollo she was a con person. She conned Howard into get to a romance and everything, and then
Howard was in love.
He was in lust. He wasn't in love. He was in lust.
I'm giving Howard the benefit of the doubt.
Poor Howard. He was married though, so he was married.
Now, okay. Maybe
I feel like I'm watching a soap opera.
Maybe it's a little lust. I don't know for that.
Yeah, this episode's very interesting. I feel like I didn't necessarily need an episode to justify why there are so many like extras and stuff. They already did the sort of Frogurt stuff where he's like, "You guys are on your adventure," or is that later? Is that
it's
Frogurt? Yeah. That's so funny. They do it again. Like they keep feeling the need to like justify all the background talent. Like it's so funny. I think I would be okay if somebody had just said a line where it's like, "Oh yeah, Nikki and Paula, they fell off a cliff." Anyway, back to the plot of the show.
Well, they were probably trying to right the wrong because so many people were complaining so much about Nikki and Paulo. Again, I'll say it 1,000 times. They should have just been on a different part of the plane and crashed in a different part. You had their bag. Well, how different things fell different places. You had where Kate and Sawyer found the guns, the marshal's briefcase. They could have been anywhere. I think, but trying to put these two people in season 3 when this show was being picked apart scene by scene was a mistake. I mean, I didn't hate Nikki and Paulo, but I hated listening to people complain about Nikki and Paulo.
Watching this now, it made me feel just so bad for those actors because, here you are, you're put on this hit show. Everybody hates you, and then you're like murdered off in like a fun way. Like it's great. I think really it felt like, okay, we're gonna throw you guys a bone. We're gonna give you like a whole episode. We're gonna make it as good as we possibly can, and we're gonna kill you off in like a very fun, crazy way. But God, watching this, I was just like, those poor people. They fly them to Hawaii. They're on the show. They're like, oh, Lost is this huge show. Here we go, and then. Oh boy!
Yeah, they must have got tons of. I'd like to ask them how much hate mail they got, because Lost fans are very. They're the best. The best fan base of any fan base. The Lost fan base, but they can be angry. They can get angry.
And I apologize for not knowing the actor, but I'm sure he got a lot of
Santoro.
I'm sure he was okay because he got all of that Love Actually fan mail. So
Oh, is he? That's funny. He looked familiar to me on this rewatch. I was like, oh, he must have been in something after this, you know?
He's in
He's
West.
on Westworld.
He's on
That's what it is.
on
It's
Westworld.
Westworld. Oh my God. Yeah.
He went on to do all right, and
He was the Tom
It's great
Cruise.
on Westworld.
Yeah.
what's up?
Wasn't he the Tom
He's
Cruise?
great on
Is that how he sold, or
I
wherever
think
he's
so. Of Brazil, right? Wasn't it?
He's the Wolfgang Puck
of Brazil. Yeah.
Brazil.
I may be wrong on that, but this episode though, as picked apart as it is, I'm kind of with you on this, Jack. I almost hated hearing about all of the hatred of Nikki and Paolo, more so than I actually hate it, because I thought this was a fun episode. As I put in the chat, it was like going from Ruth Chris Steakhouse to getting a Happy Meal, because it is a little bit more filler. It's fries and a shake and in my notes here, which is why I went to grab them. So I guess I should at least have the payoff of why I went to go get my notes. But high on my list here is that we get this telltale heart, Edgar Allan Poe / Twilight Zone moment with them. And I thought they set it up great. The writers did an awesome job of bringing in like all of these other characters and all of these other moments. So we get
Doc Arts.
Yeah, like, so the fact that we get Doc Arts and that has a payoff with the spiders, and it's just like subtly put in there. I thought that was really great, and they make these characters so hated. Like, they can be the beautiful people, but man, like, they just make them not redeemable, as far as like who they are as people, and the fact that they're just out for themselves and don't trust.
Because Paolo was smarter than Boone. Is that what people didn't like? Because he knew not to go up in the plane.
That's what it's funny that they meet Boone and Shannon at the airport, because you're like, I mean, basically, is it not just the same type of thing? It feels like they're like tipping their hat as to, like, okay, we replaced them with these people, and
Right.
Yeah.
But Nikki wants Paolo to go up in the plane.
Yeah.
Right.
And
right. Another reference to Boone.
That could crash. I'm not going to do that, because Boone was an idiot, and Boone went up there because he listened to Locke. And then they find the pearl station, right?
Right.
Right. Oh my God. Yeah, that's so weird.
But I mean, they're searching for these diamonds, so of course they're going to actually find and uncover all of these mysteries that everybody else has yet to uncover, but here they are, like finding these things, so, or they even get to talk to Ethan, like the scene with Ethan. So, all of these characters from the past keep popping up. So as annoying as it is, I do like, it's just the closest to a clip show that you get.
Yeah, that's true. It's also one of the funnier episodes in terms of all the lines. Just like, who's Nikki? And then it's like, boom, act break. I mean, that is so funny. It's really like fan service there.
And Sawyer calling them jabronis.
Yeah.
Like even his nickname for them, is like really great. So.
When Nikki comes running out of the jungle and she's having trouble breathing, and Hurley and I think Sawyer even he doesn't know who she is then, right?
No, he says, who that's what he's like, who's Nikki?
Yeah, who's Nikki? And then it's like, lost. I mean, that's hilarious. so funny. Yeah.
But we're presented with a mystery right from the get-go. Is why did she stumble out of the jungle, and what did she say when she fell down? And right from the get-go, we have 3 different ideas of what she said, and all 3 obviously end up being wrong. Sawyer thinks she said plywood. Hurley says she said power lines, and then as he's thinking about it for a second, he's like, no, Paolo lies. She said, I'm telling you, she said Paolo lies. So he was convinced that that's what she said, and that's what starts them on this investigation of it must have something to do with Paolo, because that's what Hurley thinks he heard her say. So,
but then you're thinking the whole time that Paolo is the bad guy, that he wants to keep the diamonds away from her, but yet he loves her, and he knows that she is not. I don't think she really loved him. She
was using him. She used him,
and he knew it, and he didn't want her to leave. As long as she didn't have the diamonds, he thought that she would be there forever. So you think, the whole episode is you're thinking, okay, Paulo's a jerk, Paulo's a jerk, Paulo's a jerk, but it's not. It turns out to be Nikki.
Yeah.
I found it interesting that in this episode, Paulo's vice that he needs to quit smoking. So it's this whole thing about Paulo and smoking. And then, at some point later on in the episode, we do hear the smoke monster. So I love that whole connection thing too.
Jen thinks that's what killed him.
Thinks that's what killed him, but yet when the spiders come for Nikki, you actually hear the little tick tick in the back.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so I just like those connections that the writers kind of weave together. I love that. I think it's totally fun.
Yeah,
So,
and
yeah.
I just was going to say, like, the whole thing at the opening, the fact that you have these 3 different wrong answers and we don't find out the answer to the end, like, how much of a metaphor is that of the show?
It's
all of the fans,
it's huge, huge.
like misunderstanding all of these things that are being said, So
Yeah, and one of the things I write on my website is about, like I would tell people, it's not just about watching this show surfacely and literally. For me, it was about I'm really listening to what they're saying. I'm looking at the background. We do this all the time. Right. I want to read between the lines. I want to know, because it's not just these people that fell out of an airplane onto an island and crashed, and that it's everything is like there's a literal monster and things. Now, I want to kind of delve in a little bit deeper. So I kind of feel like it's all about perspective. There's a big chunk of what this show is about perspective. What is your perspective of it? And perspective can only come from your own individual experience anyway. So I think that us getting those 3 different versions of what she might have said is really a nod for us. Like, pay attention, because it's not what you think it is.
Right. What do you guys think of Charlie telling Son the truth?
I was just going to bring this up. This is on my notes here. I mean, I think that this was probably like the biggest.
Oh, then forget I said it.
No, I think it's probably like it is the one thing that we get that I think is rooted in our lost, like our lost crew, the people that we're following. It's the one element of truth that is revealed in an episode which it's all about lies and hiding and burying things deep and like mistrust. You have this moment of revelation and openness, and the fact that Charlie's like, look, I was a different person and Sawyer made me do it.
Right.
I mean,
he felt the need to come clean and be honest about it.
He was honest, yeah. I mean, he did do a little scapegoating, but he
you think
very truthful.
He came clean because Desmond keeps saying he's going to die, so he's just trying to get this off his conscience. And
maybe, I mean, there might be a little bit of that. I mean, like righting the wrongs of what's going to happen to him. Perhaps.
Well, I think Charlie he's a good Catholic boy though too. So I think somewhere maybe he wants to just I want to confess, give my confession.
I was going to say, in regards to Sawyer dying, he even has that great line where he's like, if she went to go bury something, knowing that she was full well going to die must have been pretty important, right? So they're clearly tipping the hat to the fact that he's acknowledging, death a little bit.
Well, you even had Vincent took the blanket off. Now, was Vincent trying to tell him they're not dead?
Probably.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Yeah, a dog knows.
But they're just thinking, okay, Vincent's just being a jerk by taking the blanket out. Hey,
right. They're not. In other words, you're not paying attention to what's really going on in front of you. You're not. There's so many times they're not even paying attention.
This is where you needed Lassie. Lassie would have been able to communicate and say,
Lassie would have barked.
They're not dead.
What's that? There's a man in a hatch. There's a man in a hatch.
Jacob, who's
on
Jacob?
My way. Yeah.
The smoke monster is the man in black?
Yeah. Well, thanks for all those answers. But and then we find out what Paula was doing in the bathroom.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he hid the diamonds in the. But he screwed up the plumbing by breaking that doll in pieces. It's going to go in the plumbing.
That is not that. All that wood is going to deteriorate in that water over time. It's just like it's going to be a.
Well, it might get sucked in, when the water comes, lift up the little rubber thing. It's
not good.
I'm not that was bad on Paul.
You know how hard it is to replace a whole toilet kind of thing. I mean, I've had to do that myself.
It's called a flapper.
The flapper. Well, sometimes you got the stem. Sometimes you got the stem and the the whole.
I'm married to a
depends on-
contractor.
No, I've had to replace several toilets in my time, and I'm just saying that it's not easy when you're on an island to even get that material. I mean, like the sub's blown up. How are you going to get more materials to fix this toilet? And if you're down in that station, I mean, come on, like you can't
And not for
reveal
nothing,
yourself.
okay? Because even though Ethan was a doctor, he also was a plumber because
Yeah,
he
they
was
killed
fixing the plumbing, and he was fixing the plumbing under that house that one time. But
not to get gross, but you know how those notebooks are going to one big pile out in the middle of the jungle.
Mhm.
Do we think that that's how the plumbing works here on this island? It's all, oh look, it's all ending up here. I had to log each one. I thought it was so important.
It is down, and this is the other thing. When you have a toilet that's down here, you have to have like a kind of something that goes up, or it has to go out. So I'm no plumber, but I do know the physics of flushing. So
All right, I apologize for bringing this whole thing up. That was my
yeah,
bad.
that's separate too. I think you solved this, Morgan.
Yeah, I did. We did. That was a scene that was edited out. We didn't get to see it. It was like, oh my
Yeah,
god,
there's a whole station we never saw that. It was pretty gross.
Yeah,
the toilet station. Anyway, but I did want to say that Paulo's what did him in because someone mentioned his nicotine gum. That's what did him in because he was chewing it and Nikki figured it out that he did find it.
yeah. So smoking does kill. So.
Yeah. Did you bring gum forever? He could have. What he should have just said. No, I found this gum somewhere. It was someone else's gum, nicotine gum. I found it.
She
leaf.
caught him in a lie. And she had the spiders right there. Like, and
Yeah.
by the way, if you release the spiders, get out of there. Like she stood around way too long.
But here's the thing: when we get at the flash of that, or not the flash, but the actual recall of it, when she finds out and she discovers that Paulo found the bag with the diamonds and the gum, her first reaction is to go to Sawyer and get a gun.
Yeah,
That's her first reaction.
Because Desmond says no. Your mate was
Talking to her earlier.
and then we find out he still didn't know her name.
Right. He said, "Who the hell are you?"
Great. Really good joke.
And credit Sawyer. He did the right thing.
Right.
He knew she was
pissed off.
She knew she was upset, and then the gun would have been for the wrong reason. So he did. We give Sawyer a lot of crap, but he did the right thing. Because even when Son comes to confront him, he's like, "Oh God, why did I do that?" Yeah. He could see he's and she slaps him, and he goes, "Yeah, okay, I deserve it."
Yeah.
But he didn't give the gun to her, so.
No, that was a good thing by Sawyer.
Yeah.
You guys mentioned that Nikki throws the spiders on poor Paulo.
Yes.
He gets bit, and he starts to, and then she's digging for the the diamonds.
Right.
A little something.
Yeah,
for them?
for like can't wait to spend those on coconuts. I mean, Jen says it. She's like, "Who needs? You don't need those here." It's so funny. It's like the faith you must have to think you're getting off, that you're going to murder somebody for some diamonds. Like, oh boy,
Yeah.
you just saw that there's like a whole like secret military based operation going on, and you're still like, the most important thing in the world to me right now is like $70,000 worth of diamonds. Like, chill out.
Was it because she was offended when he questioned her about sleeping with was Harold was his name?
Yeah, Howard. Yeah, Howard.
Howard. So is that what ticked her off? Because she was like going, yeah, I wanted to sleep with him, basically.
No, I think she just was still using him anyway. I think because she still only ever had a one-track mind. It was about getting to the diamonds. Even in the beginning of the episode when he was, the chef in the house there. So her goal was just hurry up. Let's just get rid of Howard, and I want the key, and I want to get the diamonds. So it was all about that. It was about not getting caught. It was about, it wasn't, oh, we're going to have these diamonds and then we're going to go live a romantic life in Paris somewhere together. Not once did she ever profess like, oh, I just love you. And it was about getting the money, the diamonds. And so she had a motive, and that was that. So I don't trust that she loved him now.
Okay, I was trying to look for any out I could for her.
No,
I'm
think
so
that's
sorry,
great
Jack.
assessment.
I'm sorry, but that's
It's airtight.
a woman's perspective is no, she was just being a bitch.
Yeah. I mean, let's face it, Howard was old, and she fell on the sword for that, I guess, right?
Yeah.
I only wish we would have seen Paulo talking to like somebody else for relationship advice with, because I mean, he did love her,
He
know,
did.
so like,
He loved her, but it wasn't reciprocated.
It wasn't. It was, and that's why you should never fall for the unrequited love.
Yeah. And Howard had the key around his neck like Jack did.
Yes.
In the safe, so.
Yes.
I don't know if that was done intentionally or not, but I did notice it.
And another fun tidbit, Jack, just so you know, when they were looking at the script, right? When they're looking at the script and they go to the tent, one of the actors' names was Rick Lapidus.
I didn't even notice that.
How great would it have been if,
Just
when
a
you're
little
seeing
fun
them
thing.
in the clip show moments, if suddenly it's just like, he's operating with Jack on the it's like suddenly they're just in the most important moments of the whole show. They're just off frame. Yeah. They're punching the button.
Yeah. It's my turn to punch and forfeit.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Here we go.
Well, how come if they were going to that area, that's why he didn't want Nikki to go. Because he knew the diamonds were there, right? Matt.
Yeah, that's great.
Well,
I'm just now realizing that that's you, right? Is that you?
Yeah, that is me.
Yeah, that's
I was just pointing out in the chat that Paulo wears briefs. Because if he had boxers, that bag would just down the...
Slip right
I'm just saying. The logistically.
I mean, there's clearly a lot to talk about this episode.
It is practical. You have to be practical.
Just pointing the obvious thing out here.
It's practical. Yes.
It was boxers down.
So he was buried in his briefs.
There is no way any man could hold that there for that long by sheer willpower alone. I'm just being, again, practical. So
not even some island magic. It wouldn't help.
No, there's no secret pocket right there on the inside of. I've never seen that.
So in the end, do Hurley and Sawyer kill Nikki and Paulo?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, they do.
Yes.
They murder 2 people.
Yes.
They accidentally murder 2 people. It's astounding. Yeah. I was watching that today and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot they accidentally murdered 2 people.
Yep.
Because when they throw the sand in and Nikki's eyes open up, it's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I wish I never would.
Yeah, a hand shoots out of the sand.
Yeah.
Yep. So that whole investigation and everything from start to finish is 8 hours because you're only paralyzed for 8 hours.
Right.
So, but they don't know that, and they should have listened to Vincent because Vincent tried to tell them, "Don't bury them." Vincent tried to say, "Don't cover them up," but nobody listened.
It's like the ending of The Mist.
Yeah.
It's like, oh boy,
I just think what was so. I mean, again, it reminds me of Edgar Allan Poe or Twilight Zone, just that twist, and I love that dark aspect, and the fact that they have Hurley, one of the kindest person that it's basically who we relate to the show through. We see the show through Hurley's eyes, and he's time to go. You're not a fan favorite. Goodbye. I'm gonna kill you.
So in the end, 2 characters that were not well liked on Lost, but they had a pretty good send off, right?
Yeah,
I would say
great,
so.
Yeah.
I think this episode gets a totally bad rap, and the way that they because I remember when this came out and people were just really like down on this episode. I'm like, have you seen the Jack with tattoos one?
Have you seen it?
Yeah, that one.
Fire plus water.
Yeah. It's just clear, and I think that this would be in a truncated season 4 due to a writer's strike or whatever, where they're just getting to the meat of the show. That this is like first one to go. Tattoos is the first one to go, and I think it was probably hard for the showrunners and stuff to just understand like with what vitriol I would like wait frothing at the mouth for another episode of Lost in order to find out like what's in the box or something, and then. To cut to like something like this where you get like maybe one little piece of info on like the whole thing, and then sometimes it wouldn't even be next week, it would be a month. You'd have to wait for some reason. There'd be some football game or something, and you just they push Lost, and like how upsetting that would be.
I do remember season 3 became that season where, so they had the 6 weeks where it was like at the very beginning of the season where it was all right shotgun through. Then we had this big, huge break. Then they came back in January, and then somewhere in March it got. Was it February? I thought it was January.
I think it was February.
I just remember like at some point in the season it got choppy where it was just like, oh, we're coming back in 2 weeks. Oh, we're coming back in, and it really hurt the momentum where it was just like, no, they needed to have it every.
That's why this would have been better if it was on cable, because cable, you get it every week. You get it, HBO, of course, Netflix is, we talked about earlier, it's all at once, but Hulu, and you get, I think is Amazon's all at once, right?
Yeah, I think it's case by case, but yeah, totally. I mean, if this is a perfect one if you're binging the show, then who cares? It's great. It's super fun.
Right.
If your whole life hinges on Lost for that year, like mine did at 16, 17 years old, this was a serious disappointment.
Oh, mine did because I was older. I had to worry about dying before the end of Come on, hurry up and get this show. I'm not getting any younger.
So Jack, your opinion on this episode then as a whole, what do you feel? Did you
I never hated it. I liked it. I thought it was a fun episode. But like you were saying, Morgan, it's like, okay, there was other stuff I wanted to know about. And it's like, okay, you just kind of diverted to this other episode to get rid of these two characters. But I didn't hate it. But again, it was like, we said you had to wait 2 weeks. It was so sporadic at the time. It was like, oh, come on, what's going on? Come on, what's going on? But
I thought it was fun, and I thought it gave us a lot of nods to what was to come. I mean, not for nothing, Sawyer's leading up an investigation. He even mentions, is there a forensics hatch I don't know about? And then yet we find out later on he's in the Dharma Initiative as a security.
Yeah,
right.
Okay, so we get nods in this episode throughout. There's a lot of stuff that comes to pass in future episodes that's actually sprinkled in this one.
Or even the thing that is brought up at the very beginning that you mentioned, Karen, like the aspect of like, oh, we killed you off, we can always bring you back in next season. They kill off Locke. He's coming back next season, I mean, obviously that doesn't happen for a little bit yet, but still, like how they do that, they play those tropes. So did you see a smoke monster, Morgan?
No, I've been staying with my girlfriend in Woodland Hills, and now I'm back at my apartment in Silver Lake. We're here hiding out, and it's my first time hearing everybody cheer for the doctors and nurses. They haven't been doing that in Woodland Hills. I guess they hate them, but here they're doing it. It's my first time hearing it. It's great. It's everybody. It's wild.
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
I don't know if you can hear it over there.
So great.
It's every night at 8:00, right?
Yeah, I think so.
It's 8:00 out there. Okay.
That's beautiful.
Nice. So overall, we enjoyed the episode, and we want to watch.
Always fun to watch Lost. Yeah.
I wanted to go to the next episode because
I did want to say I did like that. I forgot to say that I do like how they're giving Charlie redemption before he dies. Fire plus the reason I hated Fire Plus Water is because I hate Charlie in the episode, and I don't like to hate Charlie.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that he came clean with Sun. I know it was hard for him. I do like, I forgot to mention too, I do like how Sun says to Sawyer, you'd be digging another hole if I told Jen.
So she was protecting him.
Yeah.
Not for nothing. She was like,
she knew Jen would kill Sun. Kill
Sawyer. Yeah.
Sawyer. Thanks.
Yeah. I mean, it's the redemption and the finding what you're looking for and the letting go of the things that are causing you such crippling emotion and depression or stopping you from moving forward. That's what the island adventure is about. You have to learn to let go of those things, and then you move on from there. And
to underline that point, Karen, I mean, we talked about it with the man from Tallahassee. Nikki and Paolo, not redeemable characters. They wrote them that way. The island took them. So whether or not Hurley and Sawyer
Right,
ended up burying
right.
them alive, they were not worthy. And yet you have Charlie making those steps to being redeemable and the things that he does for the island and for the people that he loves. So, you know, full circle there with redemption.
Exactly. So that's the depth part of the show that I was always drawn to again. So no secret there. I always come back around to that. So it's just how I roll.
We all got to roll somewhere, right? Well, this was a great. It just flew by, an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
You know, I appreciate it. I'm thank you very much for asking me to come on again.
It was really good meeting you, Morgan and Karen.
Yeah, you all as well. This is
you
awesome.
all too. Yep. And I enjoyed everybody's company. It was great conversation. I love it very, very much. Great time. Thank you guys.
Lost fans.
Anybody wants to talk about Valis, you can find me on Twitter.
Sounds good.
All right, guys, that's it. Great job.
All right, thank you.
Jack.
Thank you, Jack.
All right,
Namaste.
bye, Ray. Thanks, Jack.
Bye.